Good evening, everyone. It's me, Dr. Plague. We talk a lot about horror on this channel, but the real horror out there is how easy it is for your data to fall in the hands of disreputable people. That's why today's video is sponsored by Aura. While you're enjoying today's spooky video, data brokers, those things that go bump on the web, could already be selling your information to scanners, spammers, and anyone else who may want to target you. Your full name, email, home address, your health records, your relatives, they could all be out there. That's why I've been using Aura. Aura shows me which data brokers are selling my information and automatically submits opt-out requests, just for me. It was simple to use and very intuitive, and I had barely gotten out of the setup process, and it was already blocking over 20 data broker requests on my behalf. Aura protects your passwords, your banking information, everything you need for day-to-day online life. Cleaning up my information not only helps reduce the amount of spam I get, but it also protects me from hackers who could use my information to help them access my social media accounts, bank accounts, other sensitive information. Things like a certain YouTube channel that you all enjoy listening to so much. Aura also does much more to protect me and my family from online threats, the kind you can't see. It comes with other features like antivirus, VPN, password management, parental controls, identity theft insurance, and more, without having to download several different apps. It really is just that easy to set up, and best of all, I get everything at one affordable price. I hear you saying, but Dr. Plague, I have one or two of these tools already. But, dear readers, not having Aura is like locking the front door and leaving the back door wide open. Readers of my fine tales can tell you why that never ends well. Aura is always on, doing the hard work of keeping me safe so I can focus on other tasks like finishing my latest book or uploading my most recent video. I value my privacy, and I know you value yours. You can go to Aura.com, that's AURA.com, to start your 2-week free trial. You can also check out the link below and start your free trial with Aura. So why not give Aura a try and protect yourself from the real monsters out there? You know, it's crazy what the human mind can adapt to if it's determined enough. I'm not some moron from a horror movie who goes poking his nose into every dark crawl space when he hears a noise. When weird things happen here at the school, I don't offer them a second glance. I'm like a horse with blinders on, always looking ahead, never getting distracted. Some terrible things may be going on here behind the scenes, but I figure that if I just minded my own business and focused on my work, it would never touch me. And that tactic actually worked. At least until last night. The moment I got to collapse on the couch at the end of the everyday was the only thing keeping me going. Once I was home, after all, I was certain I was safe from whatever was going on at work. I'd officially made it through another day. I'd been recuperating from my shift in standard fashion, wasting my life on the couch watching TV and drowning my woes with cheap beer, listening to the rain pound on the roof, when somebody suddenly slapped me awake from my drunken stupor. The mention of the name William. I popped up in an instant, staring at the news report as if spellbound. They'd found his hand, and just as Katie had hoped, it was lacking all its fingernails. Crews were being assembled to scout the woods for the rest of his body, and I prayed their search would lead them to the school. No dice. The hand had been found on a cliffside, dozens of miles away. No foul play was suspected, only the ravages of nature. I watched as a forensic scientist speculated that a bear or a coyote had probably killed him, or consumed his body after death by some other cause, judging by the hints of tooth marks around the cut to static. I groaned, missing the days of CRTVs, when all you had to do was give it a good smack on the side. I was just about to give up and go grab another beer when my phone started vibrating in my pocket. One of those doorbell cameras had come with the house, and it just buzzed me with 6 notifications back to back. Each read the name, motion detected, front door. I opened the attached photo and found myself dumbfounded. Again, just static. Looked exactly like the black and white dominating my TV. I didn't even know those cameras could malfunction in that way. I tried to push the growing unease aside as I flicked through the photos, each as distorted as the last. Was a salesman at my door or something? If so, why couldn't I hear any knocking? Then I reached the 6th photo, and gasped with such shock that I dropped my phone. It was an eye. A single eye, red and veined and bloodshot, piercing through the static with pupils so dilated that the iris looked almost completely black. It was as if somebody was pressing their face directly against the door camera, just to stare back at me through my own screen, like they were peeking through the keyhole. I stared at my phone on the ground, my heart seizing in my chest. I knew it was just a still photo, but I couldn't help but feel I was locking eyes with something staring back at me. Then I heard the crackling in the TV, and I looked up to see, yet again, that very same eye staring at me from behind that blurred fuzz of static, gazing rapidly around the room before settling to meet my gaze. Its pupils dilated even further, as if excited by the sight of me. Then came a crash and a roar that shook my house, and I screamed and fell on the ground, sure some demon was charging towards me. But it was only a bolt of lightning crashing down right outside my door. And as my TV screen burned out, every light in the house flickering and dying, a terrible silence and darkness settled upon my living room. With trembling hands, I reached for my phone to flick on its measly little flashlight. I know I was probably just giving away my position, but I just couldn't bear to sit there in that pitch blackness, knowing that something could come at me at any angle in the dark. The faint outline of that black eye seemed to have burned itself into my phone screen. I tried to ignore it. What was I supposed to do anyway? My every primitive instinct was screaming at me to run, like I was some deer in the woods who could sense that the wolves were circling. But how could I escape something I didn't even understand? I hid in my bedroom with all the superstition of a child who believes hiding under a blanket would protect them from the monsters in their closet, staring at my door and clutching my baseball bat like it would do anything. The static returned outside this time. At first, I thought it was just the rain beating against my windows. But then I turned and saw a hint of white light pouring through the glass. I hid just in time. Something unfathomable walked slowly past my bedroom window, which was doubly concerning, given the fact that I was on the 2nd floor. It had the shape of a man, I thought, at least the roughest silhouette, but it was composed entirely of static, like a TV screen turned to a dead channel, screeching that static screech and bathing my room in flickering white light. Even when it passed, I stayed hidden, too scared to move, to breathe, to even think. Tears were streaming down my face. I couldn't stop shaking all over. Then I screamed and jumped to my feet when my bedroom computer screen suddenly blared to life, roaring with the crackle of static that felt like an ice pick working its way into my brain. From that static, something began to emerge. It almost oozed from the computer screen before morphing into a solid shape. I dropped to my knees and covered my ears, screaming and pounding my head. Nothing worked. The static just kept getting louder and louder. There it was, floating above me. Something that mockingly disobeyed every rule of God and nature with its very existence. And through the flickering static it was composed of, I caught a glimpse of eyes. Thousands of them, all bloodshot and black and staring daggers into my soul. It floated ever closer, its flickering hands reaching out as if ready to settle around my neck. I remembered the way William wailed in the woods. I wondered if I'd sound that way. But when its grasp was only inches away, it froze in its tracks. I heard a floorboard creak in my bedroom near the door, which was now ajar. It was the Hastings twins. They settled their emotionless gaze on the creature and opened their mouths to speak for the first time. Not in words. Instead, that same horrific static came rumbling up their throats in unison. The creature crackled back at them as if they were having a conversation. No, not a conversation. An argument. Once it was settled, the thing hovering above me seemed to begrudgingly flicker out, like a TV set being switched off. The Hastings, too, nodded before disappearing back into the blackness of the hallway, the sound of their footsteps stopping abruptly as if vanishing into the darkness itself. The lights flickered back on. Everything went back to normal in an instant. Once again, I'd been left alone to agonize after having witnessed the impossible. I don't want to go into the self-destructive spiral that was the rest of my night, crying and dancing and drinking and stumbling around the house like I was commemorating my brush with death. I didn't know what to feel. Relieved, horrified, upset. I was crying one moment and laughing the next. Eventually, I finally settled on a single emotion. Anger. My knuckles had almost turned white from how hard I'd been gripping the steering wheel as I tore through the dark and stormy night. I slammed my brakes in front of the school and looked up at it with a swirling, drunken hatred. And there, a faint light from the headmistress's office, just like there always was, even long after everyone else had gone home for the night. It was like she never slept. The headmistress was a woman of sunken cheeks and sharp, angular features, harsh yet faultless, like she had not been born, but rather sculpted out of marble by some Renaissance master. She sat at her dreary candlelit desk in anticipation when I stormed in, as if she'd been expecting me. "Mr. Vermeil," she greeted. "How may I help you?" But I'd already seen that familiar, knowing look in her eyes. I scowled at her. "You know why I'm here." "Perhaps. I want to hear it in your words." "Don't do that," I snapped at her. Drove me mad, that tone of hers. "You always speak to me like I'm some stupid child. I'm not. You aren't pulling the wool over my eyes anymore." Her brows raised, almost imperceptibly. Did she not even realize she'd been doing that? Or was she just surprised I'd called her out on it? "My apologies. Please state your piece." I sat down across from her, collecting my thoughts. Now, I have put up with a hell of a lot for this job. Not for you, not for the money, for the kids, but there's something wrong going on here, and I'm not going to let you tell me everything is fine and dandy. Not this time. Every man has his limits, and having some godforsaken thing busting into my house in the middle of the night, that's... I'm already aware of this intrusion, Mr. Vermeil, and you have my sincerest apologies. It is unprecedented in the history of this institution, she said in the same even-handed tone. A parent was upset with the Hunters incident from the other week, and somehow deemed you worthy of the blame. The Hastings family is brand new to us, you see, and doesn't quite understand how things work here. I shall see to it that their behavior is corrected." I slammed a fist against the desk. "A parent! You act like this was some botched PTA meeting. That thing burst into my house, and it wasn't even human. Headmistress, I'm telling you for the last time, I'm not some useless idiot you can keep in the dark forever. You need to tell me what's going on here, or I'm going to walk. Simple as that." There was a long pause. In that silence, my mind ran wild. My nerve faltered. Maybe I really am one of those morons from a horror movie. I'd just waltzed into the headmistress's office, all alone, and ranted about knowing far too much. If there was some sort of conspiracy going on here, what was stopping her from disappearing me at that very moment? I braced myself for some of those security things in uniforms to kick down the door, but instead, the headmistress slowly stood and turned to face the window, her arms crossed behind her back, watching the raindrops roll down the window. "Do you know the one thing that unites all sentient creatures, Mr. Vermeil?" I blinked. No, I don't. "The capacity for parental love. Even penguins will guard and warm their eggs for weeks. Elephants will nurture and rear their calves for over a decade, etc., etc. The love a parent may have for their child is one of the very few ineffable qualities which unites all intelligent creatures." I know what you're about to say. Yes, there are true monsters out there of every kind who neglect or abuse their children, but that is their choice, their own sin. It is not innate to them. In the end, even the darkest devils or the most wicked fiends are capable of making the choice to love their own children. She turned to me, and her gaze was hard and cold. I'd never seen her so on edge. "Now, I want you to imagine that you are of a species that is reviled by all the world, despised, feared by all mankind, considered the stuff of nightmares and urban legends. Perhaps your reputation is well earned. Perhaps you've come to accept your life as a thing of horror, lonely, dreaded, but free." Her heels clicked against the wood floor as she stepped closer. "But would you not want better for your children? Would you not want them to have at least the option of living in a world that accepts them?" There was a twinge of emotion in her voice, the first I'd ever heard. "That is the integration initiative," she concluded, gesturing to the photos littering the walls of smiling alumni. "We offered you all a truce in a war older than the very mountain you're standing on." I stared at her, breathless, slowly working up the courage to ask. "We?" As if on cue, lightning struck, seemingly just outside her window, and lit up the room in its ghostly blue glow. And in that light, the headmistress's shadow appeared to encompass her entire half of the room. It had the shape of something not only inhuman, but which defied all natural laws. Some impossible cyclopean beast adorned by 1,000 writhing, grasping tentacles. The sort of creature I could imagine pulling entire ships down beneath the sea, in some bygone era. But the lightning passed, and all it left was the woman standing before me, staring me dead in the eyes. Do you understand? What else could I do but nod? You're still here. Thanks so much for joining us for tonight's spooky tale. If you'd like a little bit more spooky in your life, why not click on one of the videos that appears at the end of our story, or maybe head on over to one of our playlists where you can get your fill of spooky content. If you like your spooky a little more tactile, I've got a new book that's come out. If you'd like your own copy, there's a link below in the description where you can get your own copy of my spooky book. If you like what you see here on the channel and think you might like to support in a more monetized way, then why not come over to Patreon or become a member on YouTube? Speaking of, let's go ahead and thank our members now. Thanks to Civ Garstad, Unicorn Hollow, and Army Dude for being our Spooky Ghost contributors. Thanks to Janet, Lee Kendall, Saikat, Ronda J, Sue Casper, and Valinator for being our Spooky Skeleton contributors. And thanks to Oh Snap, Hi Stacy, Winter, Xaronan, Stephanie Carrington, Tyler Parker, Cinnamon Fox, Grim Reaper, TomBoiTopUwU, and Queen Sheebah for being our Ghostly Reader tier contributors. And a big thanks to Scott Donahue for being our Ghostly Writer tier contributor. Thanks, everyone. We just couldn't do the show without you. If you'd like to support the channel, then come on down to Patreon or become a member on YouTube. Spooky Skeleton tier contributors, that's our $5 tier, get their spooky 12 hours early at 8:30 a.m. as opposed to 8:30 p.m. My time, of course. And while Ghostly Reading is only a tier that's available on Patreon, you get a signed copy of my book anytime I write one on your doorstep in, hopefully, a timely manner. If you'd like a book, we have many on Amazon. I've got links below if you'd like to follow those. Should get you to my page so you can buy any one of my 8 books I believe we're up to now. I'm sure they'd look really nice on your shelf, and I'll sign them for you if you can find me out in the wild. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.